Fridays are awesome. Thank you for wrapping up your week with CNN Student News. I'm Carl Azus. First up, a White House meeting between President Obama and the head of the Palestinian Authority. President Mahmoud Abbas sat down with Obama yesterday, just as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu did last week. They are all discussing the same topic, possibilities for a Middle East peace plan. One of the big issues, Israeli settlements in the Palestinian-controlled West Bank. Obama and Abbas want Israel to stop settlement activity, but Netanyahu has pledged to expand it. Ben Wiedemann is in the region. He reports on the situation there.
We're right next to Ma'ale Adumim, which is the biggest Jewish settlement in the West Bank. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has insisted that he wants natural expansion or growth to occur within those settlements, which means that settlements like Ma'ale Adumim are going to get bigger and bigger, and that's something the Palestinians are completely opposed to. Now, what you see on the other side of this valley is the Palestinian town of Isaiah, known from the Bible as Bethany. Now, this town is right up against Jerusalem. In fact, many people consider it part of Jerusalem, but it's separated from Jerusalem by the Israeli so-called security barrier, what the Palestinians call the apartheid separation wall. It cannot expand, it can't have natural growth in the direction of Jerusalem because of the wall, and because of Ma'ale Adumim, it can expand in that direction. I'm Ben Wiedemann, CNN, reporting from east of Jerusalem on the occupied West Bank.
All right, catching up on a couple other international headlines, beginning with a series of deadly explosions in Pakistan. This took place last night in and around the city of Peshawar. At least 8 people were killed in the violence. Dozens of others were wounded. The attacks came one day after a suicide bombing in the Pakistani city of Lahore. And parts of Honduras are recovering from a deadly earthquake. Reports yesterday evening indicated that 5 people had been killed and 17 others injured by the tremor. Officials say the quake, which struck early Thursday morning, registered a magnitude of 7.1. It was followed 30 minutes later by a 4.8 magnitude aftershock.
Here's the deal. Today's money word is budget. It's a financial plan that estimates income and expenses. Put that in your word bank.
Well, the state of California is facing a budget crisis. The state is struggling with a multi-billion-dollar deficit. In a recent special election, voters cast their ballots against some plans that Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger designed to help the state's budget. Now, he says California has to make some severe cuts. Dan Simon explores how one might have a big impact on students.
Ramel Moore grew up on the rough and tumble streets of Oakland, California. He says a strong grandmother kept him out of trouble.
I'm strict with them.
When he graduates from high school next month, he's number 3 in his class, Ramel would be the first person in his family to go to college. He's been accepted at UC Santa Cruz.
Make me feel good, make me feel that I did that I was doing the right stuff and doing all the hard work to go, and that maybe I could be a guidance to my younger cousins and nephews that maybe they want to go to college too.
He wants to become a lawyer, but that dream could be shattered because of California's budget woes. The state, facing an unprecedented deficit, is looking at ways to save billions. And Governor Schwarzenegger has proposed slashing what are called Cal Grants, money that helps pay tuition for students from low-income families. 200,000 students statewide could lose all or part of the Cal Grants they were counting on to pay for college this fall.
The whole way through school, like the teachers and all that tell you, as long as you get good grades and all that, the state and the system find a way to send you to school.
A promise that would have to be taken back if the proposed cuts happen. Without Cal Grants, Ramel would lose nearly a third of the money for his $27,000 a year tuition and other expenses. Nancy Roman is the college counselor at Ramel's school. She says the ripple effects would be enormous.
Our main problem is getting students to even look at college, because in their head already it's been ingrained that it's too expensive, as well as with parents. They don't want their students to apply because, oh, it's too expensive. And so we always talk about Cal Grant.
Ramel has this message for lawmakers making the tough choices.
By helping me go to school, they won't have another person that's on welfare just taking the state money to survive. They have a person who working, helping making money for the state.
Today's shout out goes out to Mr. Kozat's social studies classes at Broad Creek Middle School in Newport, North Carolina. How are tropical depressions identified? Is it by female names, male names, numbers, or letters? You've got 3 seconds. Go! Tropical depressions are assigned numbers. They don't get names until they become tropical storms. That's your answer, and that's your shout out.
We already have our first of the year. Tropical Depression 1 formed off the eastern U.S. coast yesterday. Now, forecasters do not expect this thing to be much of a threat. Of course, when these storms increase in intensity, they can become hurricanes. And as we've seen in recent years, some can cause incredible damage. John Zarella looks at how prepared we are as hurricane season begins.
Galveston. Rebuilding the seawall continues after Hurricane Ike. New Orleans. The fortified levees are inspected. Alabama. Rehearsal for a massive coastal evacuation. Days before the start of hurricane season, preseason drills and preparations are nearly complete. You've been paying attention, right? Surely you've heard the chorus of warnings, the U.S. Commerce Secretary.
Public awareness and public preparedness are the best defenses against a hurricane, and that defense is more important than ever.
The New Orleans mayor.
Each citizen must have a personal evacuation and recovery plan that accounts for your entire family.
The hurricane specialist.
Plan now, know what to do, so you'll be ready when the storm threatens.
With so many drums beating, everyone living in hurricane-prone communities is ready, right? Well, no, not hardly. A new Mason-Dixon poll sponsored by the National Hurricane Survival Initiative found most people surveyed from Maine to Texas have done little to get ready. Despite recent big ones, Katrina, Rita, and last year Ike, 83% of the 1,100 people surveyed have taken no steps to make their homes stronger. 66% have no hurricane survival kits, basics like food and water for 3 days. And 53% don't know if their insurance policy covers hurricane damage. Every year, surveys find hurricane apathy pretty much unchanged, no matter how bad the season was. Sociologists chalk it up to human nature, procrastinate. Emergency managers say the uh-oh factor will kick in when...
And I saw that people really do. When the big ones are coming, they get prepared.
But this year, emergency managers fear because of the economy, many people can't afford to stock up.
We'd like people to set aside a little bit of money and buy a little bit of the supplies that they need now and a little bit more every week as they get the money.
If they just can't, experts say, now's the time to come up with a plan to evacuate.
And finally today, we're taking a look at some stories from the lighter side of news. So prepare your taste buds for a tempting trip off the beaten path. He definitely ain't the world's fastest coffee server.
You better never be in a hurry when you're in here.
But if you don't need your espresso, impress your senses with a picture-perfect latte. Mike Keene is an artist and a barista at the same time. And if you're into image and taste, you won't mind if this takes a latte time. All right, for a different flavor.
I made the deal, now I have to just accept the consequences.
But for most of us, this would be a deal breaker. Worms for lunch. The New Orleans 4th grade teacher promised her students that she'd have grubs for grub if they grubbed up good grades. They did their part, so bon appetit. On the menu.
The mealworms are grubs that turn into beetles.
Well, they would have if they could have wormed their way out of this. Some students even stepped up to the table. But if the worms' woes seem in bad taste, they still make for one good segment. And who can argue with a fudge dessert, at least until you find out it's filled with crickets? I guess there'll be no chirping on this trip off the beaten path. From earthworm entrees to an insect ending, the whole meal sounds like one big gag. Well, it's time for us to bug out for the weekend. We hope you have a great one.